Grand Admiral Vexterra of the Kilari Collective stood before the holographic display, their iridescent scales reflecting the soft blue light of countless star systems. The exploration fleet's latest discovery had caused quite a stir among the Council, a previously unknown spacefaring species on the edges of Kilari space. Most intriguing was how quickly they had progressed from primitive rocket technology to functional faster-than-light travel. Merely 2 centuries from their first orbital flight to interstellar capability, Vexterra mused, manipulating the display to zoom in on the species' home system. Either extremely lucky or extremely dangerous. Science Director Melrose's tendrils rippled with concern as she studied the data streams. Their planet should have made advancement impossible. Class 12 death world, extreme temperature variations, powerful storms, aggressive biodiversity, and constant tectonic activity. By all logic, they should have gone extinct millions of years ago. And yet here they are. Vexterra responded, bringing up footage of human vessels, not just surviving but thriving. The Council wants answers before they expand further into our territory. The logical course would be immediate containment, Strategic Advisor Kilvin interjected, his warrior-cased markings glowing faintly with agitation. A species that evolves on such a world and advances this rapidly cannot be allowed to. The Council has already ruled on this matter. Vexterra cut him off. We will attempt diplomatic contact first. If they prove unreasonable, then we can discuss more aggressive options. The bridge of the flagship Eternal Wisdom hummed with nervous energy as the Kilari fleet dropped out of FTL on the edges of the Sol system. Following first contact protocols, they transmitted their presence on all known frequencies and waited for a response. It came almost immediately. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Welcome to Sol. We've been expecting visitors for quite some time. The human's image appeared on the main display, and several bridge crew involuntarily recoiled at the sight of her bilateral symmetry and exposed teeth. Vexterra maintained their composure. Greetings, Captain Chen. I am Grand Admiral Vexterra of the Kilari Collective. We come seeking peaceful dialogue between our peoples. The human's expression shifted in a way the Kilari's behavioral algorithms couldn't quite interpret. Wonderful. Though I have to ask, why bring enough firepower to glass a solar system to a peaceful dialogue? Vexterra's scales rippled in surprise. Their stealth systems were supposed to be undetectable to a civilization at humanity's level. I assure you, Captain, our fleet configuration is standard for first contact scenarios. Merely a precaution. Ah, of course. That strange expression again. Well, we'd be happy to receive a delegation. Though I should warn you, Earth's gravity and atmosphere might be a bit uncomfortable for your species. We can arrange to meet on our lunar base if you prefer. Before Vexterra could respond, Melrose's urgent whisper came through their private channel. Admiral, they shouldn't be able to detect our ship's mass or atmospheric requirements yet. Their sensor technology is far more advanced than we thought. Noted, Vexterra subvocalized, then addressed Chen again. Your lunar base would be acceptable. We will prepare a delegation. Excellent. Oh, and Admiral, you might want to adjust your fleet's formation. You've got some weird gravitational harmonics building up between your 3rd and 4th battle groups. Nothing dangerous, but it's playing havoc with local space-time. Wouldn't want any accidents during our first meeting. The transmission ended, leaving the Kilari bridge crew in stunned silence. Calvin was the first to speak. Impossible. They couldn't possibly. But they did, Vexterra said quietly, checking the readings themselves. The human was right. A potentially dangerous resonance had been building, one their own systems hadn't detected yet. It seems we made our first mistake before we even arrived. What mistake was that, Admiral? Melrose asked. We assume that just because they're young, they must be primitive. Vexterra's scales shifted to warning colors. We forgot that youth often breeds innovation, and that anything that survives on a death world does so for a reason. As the delegation prepared for their lunar meeting, Vexterra couldn't shake the feeling that the Kilari Collective's carefully laid plans were about to encounter something they'd never truly faced before, a species that had turned survival itself into an art form. And surviving meant learning to see threats coming long before they arrived. The lunar base turned out to be far more extensive than the Kilari had anticipated. As the delegation's shuttle descended toward Tranquility City's massive transparent domes, Vexterra noticed something peculiar about the human structures. They weren't just built on the lunar surface, but deeply into it. "They've created a warren," Melrosa observed, her scientific curiosity overtaking her usual caution. "Look at those heat signatures. The habitation zones extend at least 2 kilometers down." The shuttle landed in a pristine docking bay that automatically pressurized and climate-controlled to Kilari specifications. Captain Chen waited for them alongside a small reception committee, all wearing simple but elegant uniforms that seemed designed to appear non-threatening, while subtly displaying technological sophistication. "Welcome to Luna," Chen smiled, and this time the Kilari's behavioral algorithms recognized it as a greeting gesture. "We thought we'd start with a tour before the formal discussions begin." What followed was 4 hours of carefully orchestrated revelations that left the Kilari delegation increasingly unsettled. The humans didn't just survive in space. They thrived in it. They had turned the hostile vacuum into a playground, their children learning to move in zero gravity as naturally as walking. But it was during an emergency that the true nature of their hosts became apparent. The first warning came as a subtle vibration through the floor. Chen's hand went to her ear immediately, her relaxed demeanor shifting to alert focus in an instant. "Status." The humans around them burst into coordinated action before any announcement came through. Emergency bulkheads began closing and evacuation routes lit up along the corridors. "Meteor strike in Section 7, Chen informed them calmly. "Unexpected debris from a recent solar flare. We're sealing off the affected area and initiating emergency protocols. Please stay with your guides." Kilvin's warrior instincts came alive. "Your shields should have detected and deflected any debris." "They did catch most of it," Chen replied, leading them quickly but orderly through the corridors. This one had an unusual composition that gave it a minimal sensor profile. "Don't worry, we deal with this sort of thing all the time." That was precisely what worried the Kilari. Where their own species would have responded to such a crisis with carefully planned emergency procedures and automated systems, the humans seemed to be improvising solutions in real time. Through the transparent walls of an emergency command center, they watched in fascination as repair crews in specialized suits swarmed the impact site. They moved with practiced efficiency, but each team seemed to be adapting their approach on the fly, communicating in rapid bursts and trying multiple solutions simultaneously. "Fascinating," Melrosa muttered, recording everything. "They're treating it like an experiment rather than an emergency. Look, 3 different repair methodologies being tested at once. Their resource expenditure is highly inefficient," Kilvan noted disapprovingly. "Is it?" Vexterra watched as one repair team's approach proved successful, and the others immediately adapted their methods to match. Or is it simply a different kind of efficiency, one born from learning to survive on a world that constantly tries to kill them? Within 47 minutes, the breach was sealed, the affected section repressurized, and normal operations resumed. The humans treated it as routinely as a minor inconvenience, but the Kilari delegation had seen something profound. Humanity's true strength wasn't in their technology or their rapidly advancing capabilities. It was in their adaptability, their instinctive drive to not just overcome challenges, but to learn from them, improve upon their solutions, and prepare for the next crisis. They had turned survival itself into a science. Later, as they prepared to return to their ship for the day's diplomatic discussions, Vexterra pulled Chen aside. "Captain, a question if I may. Your people's response to the emergency was impressive, but surely such improvisational approaches are risky." Chen's expression turned thoughtful. "Admiral, Humanity's history is essentially one long series of improvisational responses to survival challenges. We learned early that rigid protocols often fail when reality throws you a curveball. Sometimes you need to think outside the box. Think outside the box. The translator struggled with the idiom. It means finding solutions beyond the obvious or predetermined ones. Chen explained. You know what's funny? That meteor strike was probably the best thing that could have happened today. It showed you more about who we are than any formal presentation could have. As their shuttle departed, Vexterra pondered Chen's words. The humans had taken what should have been a disaster and turned it into both a learning opportunity and a diplomatic advantage. More concerning was the growing suspicion that they had done so deliberately, that perhaps the meteor's unusual composition wasn't entirely natural. Back on the Eternal Wisdom, Melrose's analysis confirmed it. The debris had been artificially modified to partially evade detection, though proving it had been done by the humans would be impossible. They tested our sensor capabilities, demonstrated their crisis responsibilities, and showed off their technological prowess, all while maintaining perfect deniability, Kelvin summarized, his warrior markings pulsing with a mix of admiration and concern. The question is, what else are they testing? Vexterra looked out at the lunar base, now knowing what lay beneath its seemingly simple exterior. No, my friend. The question is, what are they preparing for? The diplomatic crisis began not with a declaration of war or a failed negotiation, but with a mining accident on the frontier world of Proxima b. At least, that's what the official reports called it. As Vexterra reviewed the footage for the dozenth time, they knew better. The Kilari mining operation had been operating smoothly until their automated systems began malfunctioning in peculiar ways. Equipment would relocate itself during night cycles. Geological surveys would show rich mineral deposits that vanished upon closer inspection. Power fluctuations occurred in patterns that seemed almost purposeful. Then came the accident, a massive explosion in the primary processing facility, followed by a cascade of system failures that forced the evacuation of the entire operation. No casualties, which should have been impossible given the scale of the destruction. They've been there the whole time, Melrosa concluded, analyzing the patterns, hiding in the background radiation, using our own systems against us. The humans had a settlement beneath the surface before we ever arrived. Impossible, Kelvin protested. Our surveys showed no signs of habitation. Exactly. Vexterra's scales shifted to warning colors, just like their lunar base extends far deeper than initial scans suggest. We've been underestimating their stealth capabilities from the start. The confrontation, when it came, was equally unconventional. Instead of military vessels, the humans sent mining ships, crude-looking vessels that the Kilari's automated defense systems barely registered as threats. Until they started moving in ways mining ships absolutely shouldn't be able to move. Multiple contacts. The sensor operator's scales flashed with alarm. They're using the mineral processing equipment as weapon systems, converting mining lasers to combat frequencies our shields aren't calibrated for. The first volley didn't target the Kilari ships at all. Instead, the mining lasers, originally designed to break down mineral deposits, began systematically shattering the larger asteroids in the belt. Within minutes, the carefully mapped field became a chaotic cloud of debris, playing havoc with targeting systems and creating corridors of navigational hazards that somehow the human ships knew exactly how to traverse. Clever. Kelvin admitted grudgingly as they watched the humans use the debris field like a three-dimensional chessboard. They've turned the entire battlefield into a weapon. But that was just the beginning. The humans had spent months, maybe years, preparing this battlefield. Seemingly dead satellites came to life, revealing themselves as automated defense platforms. Mineral processors turned out to be concealing swarms of smaller craft. Every piece of innocent-looking industrial equipment held a military surprise. They'd been building this trap since before we arrived, Melrosa realized. Every mining operation, every survey mission, every maintenance routine. They were preparing for this moment. The Kilari fleet found itself fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, using weapons that shouldn't have been weapons at all. The humans had taken their industrial technology and turned it into an art of war that the Kilari's military doctrine had no answer for. When the dust settled, the Kilari had lost effective control of the Proxima system without a single human warship ever making an appearance. The few casualties had been efficiently evacuated, by the humans themselves, no less, and the system's rich mining resources were now effectively under human control. In the aftermath, Captain Chen's face appeared on the command channel, her expression serious but not unsympathetic. "Admiral Vexterra, we need to talk about territorial boundaries and resource rights. I trust we can handle this diplomatically now." Vexterra, looking at the reports of how thoroughly they'd been outmaneuvered, could only agree. But one question burned in their mind. "Captain, why show your hand now? Why not continue operating in secret?" "Because, Admiral, sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to demonstrate exactly why it would be a bad idea." Chen's expression softened slightly. "We've been studying your people as much as you've been studying us. We know the Kilari Collective's history of absorbing younger species into your hierarchy. We needed to show you that humanity doesn't fit your usual pattern." As the humans' image faded, Kilvin voiced what they were all thinking. "They could have killed us at any time. They chose not to." "No," Vexterra corrected. "They chose to teach us a lesson instead. The question is, what happens if we fail to learn it?" The debris field continued its chaotic dance through space, a monument to humanity's unique approach to warfare, turning the very environment into a weapon, using their adversaries' assumptions against them, and achieving victory without destruction. The Kilari Council chamber fell silent as the holographic presentation ended. For the first time in recorded history, the collective faced a choice between adaptation and obsolescence. The humans had changed the rules of the game. Their technological progress isn't just rapid. Melorosa explained to the assembled council, her tendrils weaving complex patterns of concern and fascination. It's exponential. They don't just improve their technology. They fundamentally reimagine its purpose. The display showed examples. Human mining equipment that could become defensive installations, medical scanners that doubled as deep space sensors, and atmospheric processors that could terraform hostile environments in weeks rather than centuries. But how? One of the council elders demanded. "Their civilization is barely out of its stellar infancy. Because they had to be creative to survive." Vexterra stepped forward. "Council members, we've been looking at this all wrong. We see their death world origin as a disadvantage, but it's actually the source of their strength." The Admiral activated a new hologram, showing Earth's history of natural disasters, climate shifts, and biological challenges. Every crisis forced them to innovate. Every challenge made them more adaptable. They don't just solve problems. They transform them into opportunities. A junior council member's scales flickered with skepticism. "Surely you're not suggesting we simply capitulate to their demands?" "No." Vexterra's own scales shifted to thoughtful patterns. "I'm suggesting we learn from them. The humans have already offered to share certain technologies and methodologies. Not their military secrets, but something potentially more valuable. Their way of thinking." The council chamber erupted in debate, but fell silent as a new hologram appeared. Captain Chen, standing calmly in what appeared to be a garden module on the lunar base. "Honored Council," she began, "we understand your concerns. Humanity doesn't seek to dominate or absorb the Kilari Collective. We're offering a partnership, but one based on mutual respect and understanding." She gestured, and the hologram expanded to show humans and Kilari working together on a joint project. A new type of environmental system that combined Kilari efficiency with human adaptability. "Your civilization has achieved amazing things through careful planning and gradual refinement," Chen continued. "We've achieved different things through rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving. Imagine what we could accomplish together." The presentation shifted to show a star system on the edge of known space, where a massive anomaly threatened both Kilari and human interests. This is why we revealed ourselves at Proxima b. There are threats coming that neither of us can face alone. We need each other. After Chen's transmission ended, Melrosa shared her latest analysis. They're right. Our long-term models show multiple extinction-level threats approaching from beyond known space. The humans' ability to rapidly adapt and improvise, combined with our established technological base and infrastructure, we'd be stronger together. Kilvin, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. There's something else. Something we haven't considered. The warriors' markings pulsed thoughtfully. We've been so focused on their technological capabilities that we missed their greatest weapon, their ability to turn enemies into allies. The council chamber grew contemplative as Vex Terra shared surveillance footage from Proxima b. It showed human rescue teams risking their lives to save Kilari miners during the accident, even as the larger conflict played out in orbit. They could have simply eliminated us, Vex Terra noted. Instead, they chose to show us both their strength and their humanity. They fought in a way that proved their power while minimizing casualties. Then, they immediately offered cooperation rather than demanding surrender. A senior council member's scales shifted to decision colors. Perhaps it's time the collective learned some new tricks. Admiral Vex Terra, you and your team will oversee the integration process. Learn everything you can about their methods. As the council session ended, Vex Terra found themselves looking at an image of Earth, seeing it with new eyes. Not as a death world that should have prevented its inhabitants from achieving spaceflight, but as a crucible that had forged something unique in the galaxy, a species that had turned survival itself into an art form and was now offering to teach that art to others. The real question was, were the Kilari ready to learn? 1 year after the Proxima b incident, the joint human-Kilari research station, Convergence, hung in space at the edge of charted territory. Inside, Vex Terra watched with fascination as human and Kilari scientists worked side by side, their different approaches to problems creating solutions neither species would have developed alone. Still surprised by how well this is working, Captain Chen appeared beside the Admiral, offering a cup of what humans called tea, specially modified to be safe for Kilari biology. It had become something of a symbol of their cooperation, a human tradition adapted to bridge their differences. Surprised isn't quite the right word. Vex Terra's scales shifted in what humans had learned to recognize as amusement. Enlightened, perhaps, your species continues to show us new ways of seeing the universe. The main laboratory showcased their point perfectly. Kilari precision instruments, refined over thousands of years, were being used in ways their original designers never imagined, guided by human intuition and creativity. The results were revolutionary. We've detected another anomaly, Melrosa announced, her tendrils dancing with excitement as she brought up the sensor readings. Similar to the ones we've been tracking, but closer, much closer. The holographic display showed a tear in space-time, slowly expanding at the edge of a nearby system. The Kilari had been detecting such phenomena for centuries, but had never found a way to counter them. The humans, upon learning of their existence, had immediately started proposing theories and solutions that seemed impossible until they worked. Launch the probe, Chen ordered, and both human and Kilari crew members moved in perfect synchronization. The probe itself was a testament to their partnership. Kilari sensor technology combined with human adaptive systems, capable of modifying its approach based on real-time data. As they watched the probe approach the anomaly, Kilvin entered the command center, his warrior markings now complemented by human-inspired tactical insignia. The defense fleet is in position, though I still think your strategy is unconventional. That's why it'll work, Chin grinned. The defense fleet was another example of their synergy. Kilari capital ships now carried squadrons of smaller, human-designed craft that could adapt their tactics on the fly, while human vessels had been upgraded with Kilari technology that made them far more efficient. The probe reached the anomaly, and for a moment, Everything seemed to hold its breath. Then the data started flowing back, and both species scientists burst into activity. "It's artificial," Melrosa announced, her tendrils weaving complex patterns of discovery. "The anomalies, they're not natural phenomena. They're weapons, or probes, or tools," Chen finished. "Someone's testing the defenses of this region of space, just like we tested yours at Proxima b." Vexterra's scales shifted to alert patterns. "You suspected this all along, didn't you? This is why you revealed yourselves when you did." "We had theories," Chen admitted. "Our history is full of stories about what happens when technologically disparate civilizations meet. We wanted to make sure our first contact with you didn't follow those patterns, because we knew something bigger was coming." As if on cue, the anomaly pulsed, and new data flooded in. Images of massive structures in intergalactic space, of fleets that made both human and Kilari forces look tiny in comparison, of technology that seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. Well, Kilvin's warrior markings pulsed with what might have been anticipation. "It seems we'll get to test our new partnership sooner than expected." "Good." Chen's grin had turned predatory. "Humanity's been looking for a real challenge. No offense to your people, Admiral." "None taken." Vexterra watched as their combined fleet moved into defensive positions around the anomaly. "Though I suspect our visitors, whoever they are, may regret assuming this region of space was inhabited by primitive species." The command center hummed with activity as both species prepared for what was coming. Humans and Kilari working together, each contributing their unique strengths. The wisdom of an ancient spacefaring civilization combined with the innovative spirit of a species that had turned survival into an art form. "You know what the really interesting part is?" Chen mused as they watched the anomaly grow. "Whoever's coming probably thinks they're the advanced ones. They have no idea they're about to face something unprecedented in the galaxy. A partnership between a species that perfected the art of careful advancement and one that turned improvisation into a science." Vexterra's scales shifted to display a pattern that humans had taught them, one that meant anticipation of victory. Indeed, perhaps they should have done their research first. As the first signs of the invading force began to emerge from the anomaly, both human and Kilari crews prepared for battle. They had learned from each other, grown stronger together, and discovered that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't technology or numbers, but the ability to see things from a new perspective. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity's creative chaos combined with Kilari precision. And if their visitors had done their research, they would have already been running the other way.